Assalamu alaikum. This is lecture 16 of web design and development, and in this lecture we are going to continue the concepts from the previous lecture in which we are discussing about the MVC pattern of Laravel application. And in this lecture we are focusing on the views and the blade templates used in the views of your web application. Views are returned by the roots directly, as you have seen above in the above slide, or the controllers return the views by processing the requests. Views are files describing how the output will look like, and there are two kinds of views as we discussed in the last slides, the plain PHP views and the blade template views. So we have also seen that views can be simple or they can be embedded with arguments. So blade templates are used most of the times in Laravel application. Blade uses the curly braces for echo and the directives for loading the content on the template sections. As you have seen the example of curly braces in the last lecture, and in this lecture we are going to discuss some directives that are helpful for the blade view templating. So there can be some conditional statements in the views in which you want to load a specific part of your page based on some condition. For example, this slide shows a particular root of a password request. That means uh, forgot your if you have forgotten your password, then you can generate a password reset request. So the condition states that if your root has a password request, you can create your password reset request, and it will be accessed by curly braces that is used to echo the statement you will provide in those curly braces. And in this case we are accessing a root named password.request. So whenever you add the authentication, the certain rules, certain paths or certain actions are added by default, and password.request is one of them. So this condition will only be true when you are logged into your application. If you are not logged in your application, you cannot request a password reset request. So therefore, if you are logged into the system, your roots will have a password request to reset your password. So whenever this is true, you will generate such kind of request, and you will be able to load a hyperlink with the forgot your password. So this is complemented with the @ if statement. So all the sections starting at if and ending if will be only visible if your condition is true. So it can also be coupled with @else and else if for two and multi-way statement. For example, if you have two-way statement, you can write @else here and specify another way of or mm, another set of commands about the HTML code. Or if you have multi-way statement, that means you want to show the different content for a number of uh, conditions, you can embed it with the else if here. Then you can use the else command, and finally you can end it with the and if section. Similar statements are unless and unless. So unless, on the other hand, is the direct opposite of if statement. That means in the if statement, the view will only load the part of the page if the condition is true. On the other hand, on the unless statement, view will only load unless the condition is if the condition is false. So here is a typical example of an unless directive. it says that unless a user has paid, you have to show this text which states that you can complete your transaction by switching to the payment tag. So whenever this condition gets true, this statement will be false. This will not be visible. So unless this statement is false, your payment user has not paid, then this will be visible. Similarly, you can use the loops in your blade templates, and it was similar into the other application, only you can add it using the @for directive, and you can end it using @end for directive, and you can access the variable using the double curly braces. Similarly, you can use the for each loop using @for each, and you can end it using @end for each, and then you can access its variable using the curly braces. Similarly, while loop can also be accessed in the views using the same directive. For else and und for else allow you to fall back if the iterating object is empty. That means if your array or list is empty, you can have empty block. That means if the first condition returns false, for example, if you start here and you check the for else interest, and if the value of interest is null, then you can look at the empty statement which will say no bank record found, and then you can end the for else loop. There are certain blade keywords that help you to add different sections or part of your web application page into different orders. So blade templating is used in PHP inspired by the razor templating from the ASP.NET. So if you're familiar with the razor templating of ASP.NET, you can easily relate it with the blade templating of PHP. So it is actually an engine to view to actually translate your PHP code into HTML code. So most commonly used blade templating keyword is @yield content. That means whenever you will use this statement @yield, any section with the name of content will be yielded to a master page. That means in a child page, if you have a section defined by @section named as content, and then you have a number of contents in the section which will be marked end by the end of section, it will be displayed using the @yield content keyword. Again, if you want to yield the title, you can use the section title in your child page, and it will be yielded to the master page using the yield title. Important keyword is a extend layout. That means if you want to use parent layout in a child layout, you can use the extend layout, and here you specify the name of your master page layout. Similarly, you can include one page to another using the include directive, and in this way you can include a partial view specifying the name of the partial view in the include directive. So it can also be coupled with the include if and include when, which include if only includes when the condition is true. Similarly, include when only includes when the condition is true. So here is an example of a master page. That means you have a view called master.blade.php. So whenever you create a page with the blade templating, you embed it with the name of .blade, and finally with the extension of .php to make it a PHP file. So if you miss this statement .blade, your views will not be rendered in the blade templating, and it will be rendered in the plain PHP. So It started with a simple HTML tag, and it specifies the language, which is uh, app.get local. That means you can use any of language of your application, which is not of very much purpose here. We start from the head tag. We have seen that you specify the title tag, and then you can yield the title from the child page, specifying the section in the child page with the name title. And then you have a body tag, and in this body tag you use a keyword called guest. The guest keyword is only accessible or used when the user is a guest user. That means if your user is not logged in your into your application, then it will be a guest user. And if the user is a guest user, you want it to display a login ID that the user may wish to log in into your application. So it is also complemented with an else statement. So if the user is not a guest, you go to the else block, and in this block you have shown uh, username and with some other text, and you end it with the end guest statement. So it is usually defined as a, if we say we have defined the top of our page or navigation of our page. So in this case, if the user is not logged in, the the login link will be displayed, and if the user is logged in, user's name will be displayed, which is accessible by authentication double colon user dot name. And in the bottom page we have yield content, and in this place the child content will be loaded. So extending the blade template, you used the home page dot blade dot php. You created another page named as homepage dot blade dot php. To make use of the master page described in the previous slide, we have to extend that page in our child page to make use of that layout master. So we do it by specifying the name of that file, which was layout.master, and we use the keyword extend to include that file. And then we created a section called the title, and the title name is dashboard. So this dashboard title will be forwarded to our master page in the section in the yield of title. Similarly, where you have the section yield content, this section will be yielded to that place. It was the bottom part of our application. And there is another section, footer script, which was not referenced in the master page, so it will not be displayed in the master page application. So extend defines that view should not be rendered on its own. That whenever you use the extend statement, the view is rendered in another view called master page. So its role is to define the contents of various sections of page, but not stand alone. That means the master page only defines the different contents of your page of your different sections of your page, but it does not have the actual content which is described in the child pages. So it is more like a series of buckets of contents rather than an HTML page. That means if you have a master page with some headings and main information, then you can put a child page in the center, and only the placeholder of the child page will be in the master page, and the child page will be defined separately, and you put this bucket into the main page. So important consideration here is each file should only extend one another file. That means you cannot use the two master pages in one child page, and the extend should be the first line of the file that you have seen in the previous example, that your child page must have the first line as extending a master page. So with section, the content from the child page is transferred or laid out to the master page. So named section layout the content to the named place folder. So in the last plugin, we lay out the content section to the main page. However, the second section was not referenced in the master page. There can be some partial views or part of views, and which the whole view is not defined. For example, you can create a partial view of only uh, containing some input elements which you can use in different forms. So a view can be displayed inside another view using the include directive. So in this case, you can use a page, the similar page you used in the home page, and then you can add a contact us form in the separate page and include that form into your home page. The functionality greatly enhances the reusability of HTML pages and content items. So there are different variations. The first is include if, that it only includes the view if it exists, otherwise it ignored the statement. That means no error will be provided if the view does not exist. So include when includes when a view when a certain condition is met. You can specify a condition, and if the condition is true, the view will be included. Include first includes the first view provided by list of views. That means you can provide a number of views, and the first view existing on your application will be loaded in the include first statement. The at the rate each iterates over the collection of views and includes a view from each of the element. You can also stack views and elements when a certain page have specialized CSS or JavaScript. Stacks help to manage it. So parent template defines a stack place holder. That means you can stack the number of elements in your parent holder. So this is an example that you have specified a script.js file, and then you have a stack of scripts. So child layout contains the push and at the rate and push statements to push the files to the parent to the bottom of stack. That means whenever this statement will occur, this file will be put to the bottom of above file. Similarly, you have another variation, prepends and end prepend. This adds the file to the top of the stack. So there is a slight difference, that push adds to the bottom of the stack and the prepends add to the top of the stack. So if you want to read more about the views and the blade templating, you can study the chapter 4 of the recommended book. And if you have any question, any medium, or you can conduct a question and answer session. Thank you very much.